So, Dr. Sandler,
Sir.
you can cure depression and anxiety.
Yeah. I just gave a little talk about what I'm also a counselor.
Welcome back to Psychobabble. Last time we talked about dependent personality traits or dependent personality disorder. And this is a series of personality disorders that we are doing. We did narcissistic, dependent. Today we want to extend the discussion about dependent personality by talking a little bit about theoretical basis, and Dr. Sandler is going to let us know about this attachment theory, which is a very important, crucial in general theory, right? And it can also be used for dependent personality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To understand some of these personality traits and understand relationships, we have to know something about attachment theory. Attachment theory was the brainchild of John Bowlby, a British psychiatrist who worked in the 50s and 60s and on. And he wanted to study the attachment between a young child and the parent. Mostly he was talking about the mother, but it could be the father, or whoever's raising the child. And his basic premise was that it seems imperative that a child makes a discriminating attachment to the mother. We'll say mother for shorthand.
Yeah.
And only this mother, as baby ducks attach only to their mother duck in the pond. And he wanted to study, what does this look like? When does it really become a firm attachment? What happens if you disrupt that attachment? If a mother has to go away for months to a hospital in England for illness, back when he was studying. And he came to some very profound conclusions regarding the formation of an attachment. And we say the child attaches to the mother and the mother bonds to the child just by convention. Also, he said wisely, the attachment needs never go away. It's not like you outgrow the need for the attachment, but instead of attaching to a mother when you're an adult, you attach to a spouse, a significant other, a sibling, that we have these needs for connection throughout the lifespan, which is a lot different than the everybody's on an island and everybody has to be ferociously independent, which one could get from other writings before Bowlby. So he made a huge contribution here to the field. He had a student named Mary Ainsworth, and Mary Ainsworth decided to study this in young children in a formalized play setting, in a playroom. It was called later the Ainsworth strange situation because there's a stranger in the room. So, as you know, Pankaj, the mother of a 1 or 2 year old child would come into the playroom with the child, and there's a play lady, the stranger, and there's lots of brightly colored toys. And the mother, at some point after the child acclimated, the mother would leave for just a short couple minutes and come back, and wisely they filmed the reunion. Not the departure, but the reunion. And from that, they found, basically you could categorize children and put them in 4. The first one they said was a secure child. Mother comes back, the child may have been a little upset at her departure, but when the mother comes back, the child gets a little hug and then calms right down and goes back to playing and seems fine. And when she visited those children in the home, the mother seemed quite responsive to the child. There was a second category, and here we get to the dependent personality traits. The child is upset when mother leaves, comes back, the child runs up to the mother and wants a hug. But then when the mother picks the child up, then it's pushing away, like the child says, put me down. As soon as they're down, pick me up. But it's very hard to calm these children and help them, soothe them and help them get back to where they could be and just play. She said they called them anxious, resistant kids. They were ambivalent about the mother, as if they couldn't trust that the mother would stay. And when she visited in the home, the mothers often were sort of inconsistent in their responses. Her theory was the child just couldn't quite trust the mother. In a third type, so anyway, that second type would be the dependent child. or might grow up to be the dependent adult. In a third situation, the child barely looks up when the mother leaves, barely reacts when she comes back, as if to say, I've been watching you for the past couple of years. I have no faith in your ability to respond to my needs, and I'm not going to make, what's the difference? She called them anxious avoidant kids. Those were the main three patterns, and there was a fourth pattern which was very disturbing and took them a while to figure out what to call it. And the reactions were not well organized into either approach or withdrawal. So a child might hold up his arms to get a hug from mother and take 2 steps back with a fearful look in the eye. They called it a disorganized pattern. It was a red flag for child abuse.
Yes, yeah.
Those were the 4 patterns. And they all matched up observations in the home. Later on, another researcher named Mary Main decided to interview adults and came up with the idea that there's 4 patterns in adults, and some of them seem very secure talking about themselves. Some of them are very ambivalent about relationships and some kind of dependent. Others are very avoidant.
Right.
And then there were people who had been abused who would lose their train of thought and very hard to relate to in their sessions, traumatized patients.
Yeah.
So that was the so-called Ainsworth strain situation, which has spawned like hundreds of papers and books and lectures. And she and her colleagues thought this up in like 30 minutes. Said, let's go to a playroom and see what we can get from this. But she really put her finger on a nice way to talk about children in the way they're forming their earliest attachments, and that these attachment patterns often last. They can change, of course, and we hope psychotherapy can change them for some folks.
Yeah.
But they often endure.
Yeah. So this dependent personality in which the child, gets drawn when the mother comes back, and then the mother picks him up, and then he wants to withdraw. That is the kind of thing that goes for the dependent personality.
Yes.
Did they look into whether this was something to do with like a biological temperament, or it was more to do with the child rearing?
They did not look at temperament. Other people, of course, have studied temperament, and as we know, certain kids are prone to take certain paths.
Correct, right.
They were only looking at the parenting style.
The parenting style. Yeah. So that was because of what parenting style? The second one, in which grew on to become dependent. Yeah.
This tended to be a mother who was rather inconsistent in her responses.
Okay.
She would respond sometimes appropriately and sometimes not at all.
Yeah.
And then the child says, I don't know if I can trust.
So the child gets mixed messages, that sometimes it's good to call mother and sometimes it's not good to call mother, and there's no criteria. Because probably it depends on the mom's moods and nothing to do with what the kid does.
Right.
So sometimes the kid wants the mom to come in and the mom is upset because she had a fight with her husband, and the kid thinks that she's upset because I'm wanting to be close to her, and so that's this whole conflict start within the child.
And we should add quickly, of course, that nobody can be the perfect parent. 365 days a year, we're both parents, and every parent is going to have days where they're just not responding to the child very appropriately. But this was more than that occasional problem.
Yeah. So, when you mix in the temperament, so the temperament is this biologically determined personality characteristic. There's something that people are born with, and like moms, anyone who's had kids, moms, dads, or worked with kids, can tell right within the first few days or months that children are different. Right? So there are some children who will be scared very easily, right? And some kids are that they go and they're very easy with strangers. Some kids are impulsive; they run on the streets and stuff. And so with this dependent style, they are high on what's called as a harm avoidance. So these kids are born with who are prone to get very scared when there's something strange happening, and so they will just cut themselves off and they'll be aloof, if they have an inconsistent mother, rather than try to take a risk.
That could be, And kids are born with different levels of needs. Even as you say, in infancy, some children need more holding and more physical affection, and you can see when they're 2 and when they're 5. And other kids seem somewhat more self-sufficient in a healthy way.
Right.
They don't need quite as much
Mm-hmm.
loving it up and support and
Yeah.
encouragement from parents.
Yeah, yeah,
So, but yeah, there's always temperament in there. There's
Yeah.
always nature and nurture.
yeah, yeah.
One thing I found in therapy too is that some people will say, yeah, I'm very dependent, for instance, but I was just like that as a kid, and my mother said, or my father said, you're too needy.
Mm-hmm.
And so they take this on
Yeah.
and think, so there's something wrong with me
Right.
as a child, because my brother and sister didn't need that much attention and that much
Yes.
affection. And
Yeah.
I try and explain to them we're all born with different needs and different temperaments, and there's nothing wrong with the fact that maybe you needed more affection and approval and attention than your siblings. It's just the way you are.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
yeah.
otherwise it can become a defense mechanism where the patient is saying, there was nothing wrong with my parents, even though they just told me 3 horrible stories about what happened with their parents, but it was all my fault. I was just too needy.
Yeah,
It's important to let them know
yeah.
no such thing as too needy as a 1-year-old or a
Yeah.
5-year-old.
Yeah. I've heard stories about people trying to discourage dependence or encourage independence. Another one, the most strangest one of the strangest that I heard was this kid whose father wanted her to grow, and she was a girl, wanted to grow up and take care of herself, so he would box with her.
Oh dear.
He would do boxing, and that was real boxing.
Oh.
Then he would punch her and she would fall down, and he said, you have to protect yourself. You have
Oh
to
my
learn to
God.
protect yourself. She grew up to develop post-traumatic stress disorder. But that was that well-meaning parent trying the wrong technique. Yeah. So that sums up our attachment thing, right? That there is these
Attachment
4
patterns.
patterns, which are dependent probably both on the parenting style and the biological temperament of the kid,
Yeah.
how they respond to it,
Yeah.
and that rolls up into a personality disorder.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah. So I think that's a good enough introduction to attachment and styles.
Yeah, maybe next time we can talk about one of the other personality
Yeah.
traits,
Mhm.
styles.
Yeah. Oh,
Good.
Okay.
Thanks for listening. Have a good night.
And when you're
Only 3 hours.